So we're getting some better instruments now. The new electronic valve instrument, Nyle Steiner's Outcome, the Synthophone from Martin Hurni, Switzerland. A lot of wind instruments, and I think wind instruments are going to play a more important role in the future. Why? Well, as soon as they get unshackled from MIDI, which could happen, you have to really force that continuous control into MIDI, and it screams and kicks when you do it. You can talk to Martin Hurni about that, about what he had, the data streams he had to thin coming off the Synthophone to work with MIDI. Most instruments don't have a note on, note off mentality. They creep out of nowhere, like a clarinet sotto voce. Mm-hmm. The model is not good for all instruments. And I'm fond of saying it should be called KIDI or PIDI. Keyboard instrument digital interface or percussion instrument digital interface, not musical instrument digital interface. Too broad. This will change too. I think there are enough people around now that, truly understand, well, that wasn't a really good model. It was a good model for keyboards. That's what we were doing. I wanted to make this keyboard play that thing over there. Well, theater organ did that. This keyboard will play that xylophone over there. It was actually a very old model. I tried to prevail upon the people in the industry. I was in the business at that time to slow down, take a look at what we were doing, and not be pushed by the MIDI users group, MUG, that they were amateurs. They were just enthralled, but anything could happen. So they were pushing it like mad. If you didn't get on board, you were going to be left behind as a manufacturer, which I recognize that for the industry part. For the aesthetic part over here, I knew this is not a very good model. MIDI sequencers, very useful, right? They are. But again, musicians are people that can do these circus acts in real time. That's why they're useful. We've done extraordinary things to make a bad model work pretty well. What's wrong with MIDI sequencers? Well, it goes back to what Max Matthews did with Music In. It's the same model. I have something called notes, which are just sort of abstract. They're notes. And now I can sprinkle textures on notes. What a dreadful idea. I mean, Rimsky-Korsakov and Kent Kennan and all the other people that did orchestration books are rolling in their graves. You can't just sprinkle textures on notes of any description. If you can, it becomes hilarity, it becomes funny, not particularly artistic. So just that model alone, when you think about it, it's like, this is not a very good model. The ranges you play in and the notes you play and the way you articulate and all those things have a lot to do with the texture, the timbre of what it is you're playing. This appears to be an instrumental viewpoint. I don't think so. I think it's a general viewpoint about sound and music. People say, well, Tom Ray, he just wants everybody to be an instrumentalist. No. I want them to be aware that every time you pick up a medium of any sort, it imprints on you, not the other way around. People will say, it's only a tool. Say, wait a minute, don't denigrate tools. They're things that will wear holes in your body. When you garden, they will put blisters here. Tools, they will manipulate you, not the other way around. Give you an example. RCA Synthesizer, 1955. 2 broad paper tapes like this. Milton Babbitt, a wonderful man, a great composer in my opinion, is doing these pointillistic pieces, very much in the dodecaphonic tradition, a lot of pointillism, in that tradition. For one thing, you needed to get through the row to the next note. Long sustained notes in drones, they don't sort of fit. Do you see what I'm saying about the medium itself? Now, the RCA got these 2 paper tapes. It turns out that one of the interesting details is to make a long note, you had these feelers underneath, and you had to punch down the paper tape in time. You couldn't, like on a modern MIDI synthesizer, say, I want that note to last 2 minutes. Okay, so What would happen to your paper tape if you did a lot of that? It would turn into confetti. It would become dimensionally unstable. So when you listen to that entire school, with the exception of Charlie Warren, did some pieces where he used the buchla as well. He won a Pulitzer on one of them, times in encomium. If you listen to a lot of the output of that studio, the Columbia Princeton, it's nothing drone-like, nothing long and sustained, very little. And I maintain nothing, more earth-shaking than the fact that the medium you're working with would have become unwieldy, difficult to deal with, had you done certain things. So the same thing with MIDI. MIDI fits the pop thing with measures and notes and stuff like that. And people that know so little about orchestration, they can sprinkle textures on notes and see how it sounds to them and then decide. And often they don't have the ear to make that judgment either. It's something I point out to my students. It takes a long time to get a feel. Chris Noyes, one of my colleagues, Jeff Baust, they've been around. They can take stuff right off the shelf from 2 or 3 different places and put it together and know instantly whether it will work. Novices can't do that. They need this more didactic approach where I know what harmonics there are in this sound and what harmonics there are in this sound. Do they work? Yeah, do they work with each other? Is this a wild-eyed idea? No. Look at the woodwind choir in the symphony orchestra. Clarinet, a cylinder that makes odd harmonics only, mostly. Okay. Oboe, a truncated cone, makes all harmonics. Different formant structure in the oboe and bassoon. One's at about 1K, the other's at about 500. The clarinet's making odd. The flute is a very simple waveform, and it's voiced up here an octave above these other. I mean, if those instruments didn't evolve because of the ears of orchestrators and musicians based on their relative spectral content, then I'll eat one of those scores. They did do that. Therefore, that thing that works, why does it work? In other words, not just any combination of textures works. Not because it has to sound like an orchestra, because of the nature of our ears and the attention and where we have a basilar membrane and what can get stimulated and the auditory nerve and how it goes down to the brain. It's digital, by the way, our hearing, but how that works. Our hearing is digital. Yeah. If something gets louder on the tympanic membrane, you don't get a bigger signal down the auditory nerve. You get more pulses. Very interesting. It's digital. So, I don't know. To me, that's just an interesting aside when I discovered that. It's like, oh, it's like pulse code modulation. The pulses don't get bigger. They're just in a different configuration kind of thing. So, things that seem completely arbitrary in MIDI, particularly, you can do any damn thing you want to. You can juxtapose things as you wish, and you have this marvelous world where you can just do these arbitrary things. And I'm saying, yeah, but there's a limited subset that work.